Rain World for Dummies, a utterly superly cool video game where you play as a Slugcat and survive the depths of hell. Nah, I'm just kidding. But any newbie would have believed me just by looking at the background. Dark rusty tubes where any creature that you make eye contact with automatically puts you on their hit list. But don't worry, before you get snapped, stabbed, dragged, or drowned, because that'll definitely happen sooner or later when playing this game, I'd like to give you a not so short explanation on Rain World, the roots of the game all the way down to its lore. A self-taught programmer who programmed multiple games in his free time. When he first started making Rain World, the original concept was for the player, this bear thingamabob, to eat the small flying creatures but stay away from the big apex predator, a small ecosystem. This game was called Maze Runner, but since Juar over here likes multiplayer, he strived to do just that, making the game multiplayer. The one who ate the most and lived won. Months had passed and Juar started to craft a general mood for the game. Inspired by the concrete structures and undergrounds in Seoul, Juar got inspired to make this game look aesthetically rusty. After time passed on, Juar started steering his game in a new direction, and in 2012 he came up with the title Rain World, after working on a new rainfall mechanic where players could only go outside when there's no rain, as the pouring rainfall would easily kill them. Juar started turning his apex predator into a snakish shaped creature, and after one comment, he later referred to his weird bear creature as a Slugcat. Not only that, but to give the users a chance to fight against these lizard/dragon/snake things, rocks and spears were added to the game. In August 2012, James Primat and Juar started working together in where James would work on the game's music with his sidekick, Lindy Esrig. Later down the line, James got a chance to give a hand in some of the aspects of the game, and together this trio managed to create a game with dozens of different lasers, expanding the ecosystem and creating creatures that don't only go out for the player, but chase, hunt, and explore in the world around them. At this point, Rain World was known to be a game where you evade aggressive creatures while simultaneously collecting enough food to eat, a concept Juar thought would get pretty boring after the first few cycles. That's where Slugcat Pop started to take shape, but even when they were far into development, they were cut from the game. A couple of deals later, Juar started reprogramming and adding more to Rain World, since he now had the time and money to do so. In 2015, Aligre del Northern, a freelance illustrator, was hired making tons of different concept arts and key art illustrations. And finally, Rain World would then be released, being one of the most popular indie games still played today. Now that all the boring mumbo-jumbo stuff is out of the way, it's time to finally go over these weird bear thingies. Now, in the downpour version of Rain World, there's way more Slugcats, more creatures, more everything. But, for the sake of not frying your dummy brain, I'm going to keep this short, going over the main creatures in Rain World, one of which being the Slugcats, Survivor, Monk, and Hunter. The yellow one, better known as Monk, is basically considered easy mode for the user. Not a lot of creatures spawn, and not a lot of food is needed to survive. Survivor, on the other hand, well, it's in the name. More creatures, meaning more dodging, hiding, surviving, is required. And as for Hunter, he's more of an in-between of the really strong one, and Survivor. He needs way more food to survive compared to the last two I mentioned, but by the time you play him, you would have already completed either Monk or Survivor. Instead of spazzing out over every little fly coming your way, flies are probably going to start spazzing out whenever they see you coming their way. Hunter isn't trapped in this underground ecosystem with the other creatures. The creatures are trapped in this underground ecosystem with Hunter. Then you've got Goremander, Spearmaster, Saint, whoever this guy is, with all their own special abilities. Peep the tongue. As for the visuals/music in the game, over time Raymond would go through all these phases, and the music was then later changed to this eerie tune. But to keep some diversity, they programmed the music to switch from this to this, whenever the player was in immediate danger or near any aggressive creatures. Going more into the inspired Seoul underground aesthetic, the background used in the game has 30 layers of raw graphics, each displayed on top of each other to create a cool 3D effect, obviously making it difficult but not impossible to apply shadows. Ooh, look at cool little shadows, wow. As for the AI in the game, consider it to be good if not the best AI used in video games, due to all creatures and animations made using AI. From limb to limb movement on not just Slugcats, but the rest of the ecosystem, the AI is best used in scavengers in my opinion, making gestures and facial expressions to express their state of mood, holding spears up as a threat or widening their eyes when afraid. Now, of course AI isn't perfect, after all, a human isn't there fixing every possible mistake the game makes. AI failing miserably in the game ranges from rangers completely forgetting how to use their legs, to lizards completely losing their micro brain cell mid-game. But besides all that, the AI definitely pushes the ecosystem concept into the game, considering that all creatures react in certain ways as a response to other behaviors from other creatures in the game. When a player plays the game, they aren't met with an obstacle they have to get over, but a creature that fights, eats, and moves to see the time of day again. Just like you. There's tons and tons of creatures in this game if you couldn't tell by the background gameplay playing every 2 seconds in this video. What you could probably most likely tell is all these different colored gooey, crawly, scrawny, crawly, scary lizards. How bad can they be? First contestant, green lizard. The weakest of them all. They have this power-up charge attack that barely works due to my super fast ninja reflexes, but compared to the other lizards, they can't climb poles or ropes like Pink over here can. Blue, I'd say, is probably the quote-unquote better one out of these two, since they can climb background walls, but they're also the smallest/weakest. The white one's a bitch though. Camouflage in the background, literally camping by tunnels or tubes, not even giving me a chance to react quick enough to escape. Not only that, but they can climb walls and perform a what that tongue do sneak attack on their enemies. Instead of going over every trait of every single living species to walk on planet Rainworld, I'm going to go over my top 3 favorites. First up, lantern mice. These cute fuzzy wuzzly furballs are probably the cutest, most adorablest creatures I've ever had the pleasure of playing with. They're fast, they glow, but most importantly, they're terrified of absolutely anything that moves. Runner up, reindeer. Yay! Main reason I chose reindeer was because of the style, mad drip. You stand on them and they take you from point A to point B. The main thing I do find charming about them is the fact that reindeers with smaller antlers bow down before passing ones with big antlers. Now these majestic creatures eat sport puffs, and the cool thing with that is that you can throw these things in the direction you want the deer to head. These creatures are honestly one of the most calmest creatures this game offers. They don't fight with other creatures, and the only time they really do die is if or when they get caught by a worm grass, which the deer can easily escape from given their perfectly molded long thin legs. Last and most definitely least, scavengers. They really are a pain to deal with when they don't like you, but they're up there in the rankings due to their amazing uses of their AI brain power and the diversity they have between tribes. We've got merchants and tolls. For example, the toll tribe scavengers usually hang out at base, peep the head on pole. They require an item to pass through, but if one dares pass without an offering, they will inevitably get aggressive and your reputation with them goes out the window. Not only that, but taking items from around their pole is considered stealing. Other than that, you'll always meet them as a neutral unless provoked. As for the actual objective in this game, from all I know, you just have to get through enough cycles to pass through these godlike gates and explore until you see something cool. Of course, this isn't the only way you can play the game. You can go cycle by cycle, eating, exploring, leveling up, or you can try finding every nook and cranny of lore throughout all this. The choice is yours, wise one. Now, a video game this popular wouldn't be complete without its lore. Incoming very short summary of Rainworld's lore. Before Rainworld shenanigans started, there lived the ancients. Within society, monks existed who sought to escape the cycle of death and rebirth. These monks believed that there existed 5 natural urges, which bound every single living creature to this cycle, and that if they shed each one, they could cross themselves out for good. Deep below the ground, there existed a vast sea composed of void fluid. This fluid has multiple powerful properties. It dissolves solid material, has the ability to produce energy, and can even cross out any living being immersed in it. Void fluid's utility was discovered by the ancients, and they began to put it to use, making great technology bonds in the process. This event became known as the Void Fluid Revolution. Interators, massive, freestanding computer imbued with great processing power. One of their purposes was to discover a solution for Ascension. Their solution needed to apply to all living creatures and provide them with a way to leave the cycle of death and rebirth. However, this problem appears to remain unsolved by the events of Rainworld. Water consumption of the Interators is immense, and the exhaust of this water as vapor is equally great. So, as more Interators were constructed, the surface of the world was transformed by the rain they made. The surface became uninhabitable. The ancients are all gone, likely having decided to ascend on their own, and the computers that were built eventually collapsed. Fast forwarding, Slugcats emerged into this underground world, where the main Slugcat would get separated from their family and forced to live on their own.